Good evening, everyone. I'm your host, comedian, magician, Danny Whitson. But it's all tricks aside, because tonight we're turning the paranormal into the normal. Join me as we explore the gray areas of reality. We're going to talk all things paranormal, UFOs, ghosts, cryptids, and aliens, and see how it's all connected. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencer Support Association, and we are live. So if you're an experiencer yourself, or you're just plain nosy, be sure to send me your question and subscribe to the podcast. Now, get ready, because it's going to get deep. No, really, we're going to go way out there, because this is Beyond the Tinfoil Hat.
What's happening, my paranormal junkies? Welcome to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, and I'm your host, Danny Whitson. Guys, we got a fantastic show tonight with a great guest. But before we get into that, we got to say we are broadcasting live from the E-United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 105.3 FM on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. All right. Well, if you guys have been following any UFO news, it was kind of a bummer. Yeah, because, apparently, and this is weird, man. It's just kind of one of those things. Again, you're like, I don't know what to believe. What's up? What's going on? Representative Luna had a private skiff meeting with our guy, Lou. And I believe David Grush and Mullen, and they all three got sick all of a sudden. I mean, what's up with that? That doesn't make any sense to me. The three biggest names in UAP whistleblowers, and all of a sudden they all come down with something at the same time and can't have the private skiff meeting. It's just weird. Who knows why? But apparently, according to Representative Luna, the FBI was very helpful. And apparently, from what I hear, the FBI has things that we've never seen that the others don't have. So I don't know. Interesting. Who knows what's going to happen if you follow it? It can be it's definitely a roller coaster. But I'll try to update you as much as I can on the little bits and pieces here, but go give it a Google and see what you can find. But okay. Oh yeah. Speaking of finding something, there's some guy behind the scenes, too nice to be mean. Our main man, Chris Green. Where you at, baby?
Hello.
Here he is. There he is. All right. How you doing, Chris?
Good. How are you?
You're doing good. It looks awful bright there. It's sunny there in Canada. Is it a
well, sun's going
day?
Down. Sun's going down. The sun's going down. So
oh, yeah. Sun's going down on my baseball cap. Okay. Sorry, that was a Beastie Boy.
I had a good week.
Out there.
I had a good week.
Well, you had a good week.
Yes.
Let's hear about it. What happened?
So I do have a story. So I went over to a paranormal place that I like to go to, Captain Roberts. And I was talking. It's a restaurant. So I was talking to the new owner and everything, and I guess Captain Robert, the ghost of the place, doesn't like the new people there and is throwing plates and moving things. And oh yeah.
Oh, so did you experience something, or was this a place that you got to go visit?
Well, I have experience there in the past. But yeah, I did see a plate just like
Oh,
go across the room. It was kind of funny.
nice.
Yeah.
That is awesome, dude. Awesome news. So you had a paranormal experience. This was this week?
Yes, this weekend. Yeah.
Oh, nice. And it was just the plate just slipped. Did it just move across the table?
No, it was like thrown across the room.
Holy cow, dude. You saw the plate just chuck across the room.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So what were you guys, was Christy with you?
No. It was just me and my mother.
Oh, you and mom went out to eat, and then a ghost is chucking plates.
Pretty much.
Wow, dude. That is awesome. That is super cool.
Oh yeah.
Well, had your mom ever seen anything like that before?
She didn't see it.
Oh, okay. So it
was behind her, but I could see it. You know, I saw it.
And where's this place at?
Discovery Harbor.
Discovery Harbor?
Yes. So
okay.
In Penetang.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Give this place a plug here on the podcast in case people ever want to maybe go check it out and dine there and eat there and have a plate thrown at them.
It's called Captain Roberts Table.
Captain Roberts Table in what town?
In Penetang.
Penetang.
It's at Discovery Harbor.
And Discovery Harbor is a city?
No, it's a place.
It's a place.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Cool deal, dude. We'll have to take note of that, man. If I'm ever up there, you know, in your town, you're gonna have to take me there.
You will be in our town. You have.
I know. We got to make it happen.
Yes.
All right, man. Well, we're gonna get tonight's guest up and rolling and talk to him because this guy right here is awesome. He's definitely one of my favorite people, and he how's the proper way to say this? I had never met a paranormal investigator ever in my entire life before until I met this guy. So it's been a long time too. But the first paranormal investigator I ever met in real life. So I tell you what, I'm going to snap my fingers, Chris, and you are going to disappear. Are you ready?
Yes.
Hold on to your whitey tighties. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Bingo. It's magic. All right, guys. I'm excited for tonight's guest. Actually, you know, I consider this guy a friend. He has been into the paranormal since a childhood, growing up in what he calls a mildly haunted house. He followed this through high school and college, doing solo investigations with a tape recorder, film camera, and a notepad. He joined East Tennessee Paranormal Research Society in his late 20s and spent 10 years with them as an investigator, promotions director, and then lead investigator. He's been on more investigations than he can remember and had the opportunity to both provide rational answers to families in distress and witness things that left him without rational answers. And I'm telling you, this guy is an OG. He's been doing it for a long time, and I'm sure he's got some amazing stories tonight for us. If you guys will, here we go. Sorry. We're almost there. I lost my place. Give me 1 second. I apologize. Here we go. Sorry. He has been doing paranormal investigations for a long time, and he's got plenty of stories. Guys, let's welcome Aaron Cox. There you go, Aaron. Nice. First of all, I apologize for that horrible intro. My phone just went blocked on me all of a sudden. I want to make sure I didn't need to add something else there, but no, I had my place. But hey, if you don't mind, Aaron, will you please let the audience know, a little more about you?
Yeah, of course. Um, I'm Aaron Cox, 40 something years old.
Are you really 40? First of all,
yeah.
you still look like you're in your 20s.
Oh, shut that up right
Dude,
now.
I swear, bro.
No, but I'll be 45 this August. So, yeah, I really did. I got into ghosts just as a kid. Growing up in Grayson County, Virginia, in a little town called Independence. I grew up a hillbilly. So I've got a lot of deep Appalachian roots, and Appalachians are a death-obsessed culture. So it comes to me naturally, honestly. But yeah,
I was talking to Chris, like I said at the beginning, I said you guys were Tracy and Drew were my first experience. Even Chris says he would have said you were 35 years old. So exactly. I would not have guessed you in your 40s.
You guys
but dude, I mean, think about it. How many? Okay, first of all, for you to kind of clarify for you guys, I met Aaron, Tracy, and Drew at a place called Dead Man's Farm, and it was like a haunted house kind of thing where theme place, and I was doing shows at, and I remember they had paranormal investigators there, and I thought, well, I just kind of caught wind of this, paranormal investigating thing, and now there's actually real life paranormal investigators here. Wow, cool. Let's go check it out. How many years ago was that, dude? Over 10 years ago, maybe.
I mean, easily.
It's been a long time ago.
It's been a long time since we met, Danny.
Yeah, and it was so cool because you guys were the coolest, and just you really had some really cool stuff. And so, and I remember, yeah, you probably, I was young back then too, so but other than, first of all, let me talk about how did that group, how did you get with Drew and Tracy, and what made you think, decide that, like, hey, let's create East Tennessee Paranormal?
So actually, I can't take credit for East Tennessee Paranormal Research Society. It actually was around for years, even before I joined.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was started by another Tracy. We had two Tracys, but it was started by another Tracy and his partner, Scott. They started the group along with several other folks, and then actually the Dunlaps, who you were just talking about, and myself, we were sort of actually more kind of later, but the group was a good solid group. They had been around for probably 10 years before I got there, that we were together for another 10, probably 11, 12 years almost. But I met them through an event. They did a lot of events like the Dead Man's Farm. They asked us to come out there because our group had done an investigation there in their off season. When they're not running the haunted shows, it's just an old farm, and they had us come out and do investigations there, and we caught legit paranormal evidence there. We had several pictures, a few EVPs. A lot of people had personal experiences. Even on the big busy nights, when we were there providing kind of entertainment to the people in line, or infotainment, if you want to call it that, because we gave a lot of information. We put a lot of our evidence up on our computer screen there for people to come by and look at, and they could check out and handle some of our equipment that we had laid out, K2 meters and EMF meters and stuff like that. And we just answered questions. We just answered a lot of questions. That's really what we were there for. But we had done investigations at that farm and had caught paranormal evidence, and the actors would even come to us during the night. If they got a break, they would come out and say, hey, I felt a tugging on my shirt, or I felt something tugging my wig. There was a lot of tactile stuff in that location. They got a lot of tugging and a lot of pulling of hair and clothes and stuff.
And I never, okay, I had a experience when I was a child, which made me, I struggled with a lot growing up, trying to rationalize it, make sense with it, because I actually saw a ghost or spirit or whatever it was. I saw it and experienced it. And I had a childhood friend who experienced the same thing. So there was a witness, it wasn't just just me. Now, and I just recently went on Jim Harold's Campfire Show. I don't know if you listen to that podcast, but Aaron,
I've heard it. Yeah.
All the listeners, Jim Harold is like the Art Bell of this generation. So I highly recommend, please go listen to Jim Harold's podcast.
That's a big name drop too.
I love the guy. I love the guy. He is great. But I went on his show and I told my story. And, like I said, I struggled with years to make sense of what happened. And now I don't know, because I think you'll probably agree is the more you learn is the more questions you get with this stuff. And, but on the tugging and pulling thing, I had an experience. Me and Antoinette, we would watch, we do watch the paranormal stuff for entertainment.
Sure. Yeah.
That's our woo woo. We like it. We do enjoy it for entertainment. But as a critic of, the magician side of me, when I see something, I'm like, well, I could do that.
Yeah.
Or I could, and if, I want the clicks and likes, I want the views. So how do I know they're not doing that just to get on a TV show? Like if you see a chair move across the room, but you can't see the full screen, how do I know someone wasn't pulling it? So when you do see this stuff, you do have to separate your entertainment from evidence. And I would see a lot of people on these ghost shows, and I got scratched, or a ghost grabbed my thigh, and I'd be like, get out of here. But now, I do want to say this real quick. I don't want to go deep into this story, but in 2019, I got grabbed by something, and I was out on a jog, and something grabbed me and yanked me off the trail, just grabbed me by the waist, and a hard jerk, like shoot. Yeah. And my first instinct was I thought like somebody on a bike or somebody ran into me, and then I looked up and there was nobody around. Totally freaked me out. I stopped right there. I had Antoinette come pick me up. I didn't even finish. I was like, I got to get out of here. And the reason why I say it's so much more disturbing to be grabbed or touched in a way like that is, it's like, Aaron, I can explain to you if I saw something, I can describe it.
Yeah.
Or if I hear something, I can describe what I heard. But it's hard to describe what it's like to be touched by something not there, or that is there, you just can't see it. So
it's a lot easier to rationalize what you see and what you hear, because what we see and what we hear every day on television is wildly out there. Even if you're watching cartoons or if you're watching Western movies or paranormal shows, which again, I consume a lot of, obviously, but, it's a lot harder to rationalize when you have been touched by something that's not there.
It was the strangest thing in my life, dude. Yeah. And I tried to make sense of it. It freaked me out. It was bad for about a week because I was trying to, like, what happened? What else could have caused that? What could that have been? And I don't know.
No, but that's the thing too, is you're not alone. Just that feeling alone, like you are not alone in that. What was that? Like, some people, those kinds of things happen. They just, they just throw it away. But when you've got a really inquisitive kind of a mind, it's hard to just brush that kind of stuff aside.
It was hard. And even to this, I haven't been back to that trail since then. Yeah. That was 2019. And the kind of the sad thing about that area too is you're familiar where in Oak Ridge where Milton Lake is.
Yeah.
They have all the big rowing, college rowing stuff there goes on.
I've actually been to a rowing competition there.
Well, the dark side, I hate to drop this dark bomb on it, but there's been a lot of suicides there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people have went there, they've driven their car in the water and just
Yeah.
drowned, or there's been, you know, murders. There's been some shady stuff go on, you know, on that trail through there. And I don't know if that was linked to something, because it was a violent grab and, you know, yank. It wasn't like a, you know, oh, will you move over here? You know, it was a get over here, get off here. So, and now I don't know if I don't always think something has to have a history for it to be paranormal. I don't know.
Sure.
But anyways, here's the thing. I don't want to hog up all this, because I know me and you could talk. I want to hear some stuff though with you, because like I said, you started out in this young, dude. So you've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, what was your first paranormal experience? How about that? Let's hear that one.
Let's see. My first paranormal experience was actually let's see. It might have been a UFO one.
Oh, and see, that's the other crazy thing, dude.
Right.
We kind of believe that it's as messy as this is. I used to hate this. I used to hate thinking like this. And Ryan Stacy, the founder of TESA and Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, you know,
Yeah.
He came on to my podcast, you know, years ago. I used to have a podcast called The Abracadam, and Ryan came on, and I didn't like mixing my ghosts and my UFOs and I like to keep it all separate. And Ryan was on this consciousness type reality belief system that they could all be connected somehow. And I was like, what? But now my mind is open to a connection to a lot of things, because, you know, I believe, you know, there's two types of realities. There's this matter reality, and then there's a consciousness spiritual reality that is just as real. So if somebody, you know, tries to write it off, oh, it was all in your head. Okay. And so that's where everything else begins too.
That's where life is.
That's where life is.
In your head. You know?
Yeah, dude. Everything you're experiencing right now, guess what? It's in your head, you know.
No, I've said that for years to anybody who says to me, "Oh, that's all in your head." I say everything is in my head. So just throw that out the window.
But yours was a UFO. Well, let's hear it, man. Let's hear it.
Well, it was. I'll tell you both of them because they're both fairly short. They're nothing real, you know, wildly groundbreaking. But and they probably both happened around the same time. So I'm not 100% sure which happened first. But there was a ghost experience and a UFO experience. So my buddy, I was in elementary school still, probably 9 years old, playing with a good friend, just outside playing in the dark. You know, my mom had gone to go do some mom thing. And, you know, I stayed with his mom, and him just played at his house. We were playing in the moonlight. It was a very bright moonlit night. Looked up in the sky, and we both saw, it looked like your classic 1950s UFO movie UFO, like the, you know, kind of a dome dish with a plastic dome on top of it and like three like jets underneath. You know, like I said, it looked like something out of a 1950s UFO movie. No lights. That was the wildest thing. There were no lights. It was completely reflected in the moon. The moon was just really super bright that night, and it had a completely shiny surface. That's how we could see it, was because the surface was so shiny. It was reflecting the moon perfectly off of it, and we could make out the entire shape of it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And what year, when was this? You said this was back in
let's see, I was probably 9, so that would have to be 1989.
80s?
Somewhere around late 80s. Yeah.
In the 80s.
Yeah. And like I said, we both saw it. And, you know, it blew me away. You know, I still to this day, I can picture exactly what it looked like.
And I saw my first UFO ever last year. And like I said, I swear, I think it has something to do with just me paying attention. You know, my windows and doors are open now. It was one of the Tic Tac shaped things, just And I thought, what the heck is that? And is anybody else seeing this? What's going on? And I don't know, but that's very interesting, man. And that's something that stuck with you ever since a kid. You don't ever forget that.
No, and that's how I know that it wasn't one of those like kid kind of things that it's not even something that like I forgot about for years and just remembered it. No, I mean like that's stuck with me. I think about that UFO probably once a year, like really honestly. And I look at the sky a lot, because of that, because it happened so young. Sometimes I just like to watch the sky. You never know.
Now I do. I'm constantly looking up and looking what's going on, because you never know what you're going to see. And I tell people, I believe I'm sensitive now because there's dumb paranormal stuff that happens for no reason.
Oh yeah.
Around me. And I'm just like, I mean, it doesn't spook me or anything, but I'm just kind of like, okay, like, I was talking the other day on a show and this happened, this is months ago, but I remember I was home alone. I was sitting here in the living room. I took my shoes off and one of my shoes were sitting up right. And my other shoe was laying on its side. Well, this just happened out of the blue. I don't know why it's happened. It's dumb, but it happened.
Yeah.
Shoe turns from its side to upright. Fixes itself. Like somebody was like straightening my shoes up. And my first thought was, hey, is there a frog in my shoe? Because that whole, have you seen that? One of
that's like
Three Stooges or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Three
Rascals. A frog got in the shoe and would spook them out.
Little Rascals. Yes.
Yeah.
That was what I was looking for.
So I'm like, man, is there a frog in my shoe? What's going on? So I'm looking, and there's nothing in my shoe. My shoe just, just went from here to there. And I was like, dude. And I was like, okay, all right, whatever.
That actually kind of reminds me of a theory that I used to use to explain to our clients when we would go and do ECPRS. We did several investigations at like the big places. Normally you have to pay to get into those places to investigate. Just a little behind the scenes, but mostly what we did was we had a website where folks would contact us and fill out a form and tell us that they needed our help. And we would come to their house, do an investigation. We always went in trying to disprove, because if you go into a haunted house trying to prove that it's haunted, you'll prove it's haunted 100% of the time, whether it actually is or not. Houses make noises and, you have to recognize those kinds of things when you go into a place. But when I would do the reveals to our clients, one thing I always told them was it's kind of like interacting with paranormal, especially with spirits, ghosts, entities, whatever you want to call them. I don't know what to call them. They've not told me yet. None of them have told me what they prefer yet. I'm all about using preferred.
Absolutely.
So as soon as one tells me what to call them, I'll let y'all know. But I tell them that it's like talking with a stranger on the bus. If a stranger comes up to you and starts, chit chat, and you start paying attention, the more that you pay attention, the more that they're going to interact back, and then you become friends. You can do the same thing with the paranormal. The more that you recognize that it's happening and the more that you communicate, there's a lot of forms of communication. I'm not talking about sitting in a room and just talking to the air, but there's brain communication. Just even thinking about things keeps that energy going. You're providing energy to something even by just thinking about it.
You are 100% correct, man. I tell you what, I think first of all, Aaron, me and you are on the same. We're on the same platform here because that's total my belief system and my experience. A lot of people they don't completely understand. All these tools we have for communication. But this is what I want to do. We got to cut to a commercial, get to our sponsor. As soon as we get back from that, guys, I see you, Sean and David. Thank you so much in the chat. Get your questions ready. We'll be back after these messages.
Ready to answer.
Are you an experiencer of unknown phenomena? Do you consider yourself a paranormal journalist? Do you investigate strange sightings in the sky? Or do you study the expansion of the human mind? You are not alone. Welcome to TESA, a one-stop shop that offers multiple services to experiencers. Place where we can work together. Place for us to learn. Place for us to grow. A place for us to change the world. Join us today.
Have you ever wondered, or maybe just thought to yourself, if there were others just like you? You know, people with extraordinary abilities, psychogenic advancement, and perhaps unique intuitions. Maybe you just wondered if there were other people who experienced unimaginable, unexplained, or even unusual and paranormal events. Are there people who have more questions, more fears than answers? Well, you're not alone. You've never been alone. We believe you. Sign up for EA today.
It's not the strongest species, nor the most intelligent that survive, but the ones that are most adaptive to change. Join us for Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, live on YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't miss live interviews on Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, the latest declassified Canadian UFO documents, or an inside look at groundbreaking investigations. Subscribe on YouTube today for free.
If you want to really find out about Ryan, ask him about all his work and UFOs in Ontario.
Ryan is one of Canada's leading new UFO investigators. He conducts and oversees UFO investigations on a constant basis. He's compiled a tremendous amount of data regarding UFOs in Canada.
I have used his research extensively. He's much more than a one-dimensional character. He's an authority on UFOs and investigating them, May.
Wow!
Really goes over how UFO investigations are done and what are some of the mistakes that people make when they submit evidence. For starters, don't edit your videos or photos before you send them.
He would come out with an annual report on not only the number of sightings, but how many were unexplained, unknown, or just, nothing could be said. What caused
If you
it?
want to hear more follow-up conversation between Ryan and myself, you can go to richardolanmembers.com, where we have a candid conversation on ufology, the paranormal, and more. And remember, while we learn and grow and search for the truth, let's be good to each other.
All right, guys. If you guys are just now tuning in, we have been talking to paranormal investigator Aaron Cox. Definitely, Sean, David, I see you guys over in the chat. If you guys got any questions, feel free to ask them, and Aaron will ask them to the best of his ability. Now, Aaron, like I said, right before we cut to the commercial, you were talking about kind of your theory, which like I said, I believe 100%. I'm on board with you on that. Is this something? How long did it take you though to where you kind of developed and learned? Because most of us don't start off thinking, that broad open. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Honestly, I really can't honestly say that I remember a time. I was raised very, I wasn't raised in a particularly religious household, and we were always just taught to be very kind of open-minded, so I don't know that there was really ever a time, even because I had experiences at such a young age, the first ghost experience that I ever really had was, again, it's probably around the same time, 9 years old. And I had gotten a Sega for Christmas, and my mom really got hooked on a couple of the games. And every now and then, just to kind of unwind from mom stuff, she would, play some of my Sega games. And I like to watch her because, it's my toy. Let it go. I want to play with it. But, still. So we were hanging out back in my bedroom. Even my little sister was there. So it was really just about all three of us. And we heard a conversation happening in the living room of the house, as clear as a bell. And my mom said, "Aaron, I thought I told you to turn the TV off." So I knew I had for once. But I jumped up and ran to the living room, and sure enough, no TV, no radio playing, no anything, and no voices when I got there. But the three of us, as clear as a bell, heard at least 2-voice conversation going.
That is awesome.
And then we had other things happen from there, but that was really the first one.
It was a Sega Genesis, right?
Yeah, no. Actually, it was before the Genesis.
Oh my God, we're
old. I
old.
didn't have the Genesis.
We're
I was
so
a hillbilly
old.
man. I couldn't afford the Genesis. I had the one before that. I had the pre-Genesis.
I remember the pre-Genesis.
Yeah, it was just Sega.
It's Sega. That's right, kids. It used to be just Sega. Well, anyways, we got our first question popped up here. So awesome! Thank you so much, Meadowview Man. What's up, Aaron? Enjoying the show? What and where is the strangest experience you've had? That's a good question.
That is a good question. He's actually a good friend of mine. So that's my
awesome.
man, Monty. He's actually a fraternity brother of mine. So, I can tell you what the best evidence I've ever caught was. We were doing an investigation at Prospect Place in Trenway, Ohio. It's just outside. Well, not just outside. It's a little outside of Cincinnati, but it's a pre-bellum mansion. So before the Civil War, it was a stop on the Underground Railroad. A lot of history there. There was actually a bounty hunter who came there looking for escaped enslaved people. And the owner of the house was, obviously it being a stop on the railroad, was very sympathetic. And so he actually killed this bounty hunter and strung him up by the neck in the barn. And he is one of the spirits that supposedly haunts the place. Just to give you kind of a little bit of, it's actually been featured on, I think, Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventures both did investigations there. It's a creepy old place. Myself and the two founders, Tracy and Scott, the three of us were down in the basement. The basement it's a very large old house. The basement is kind of a maze, not quite a maze, but just there's a lot of halls for it to be just a brick basement. It's not just one big room. There's a lot of halls and a lot of little side rooms and things of that nature. So we were set up at the end of one hall. We had a stationary camera at the end of the other hall facing us. And in between us and the camera, there was I call it a cubby hole, but I mean, it was big enough to, you could stand 4 or 5 guys in there, shoulder to shoulder. And, but we started seeing what looked like a shadow leaning out from around that corner and just kind of peeking at us. So I just used my cell phone camera. This was years ago, but I had my cell phone on me. It was the best camera I had with me at the time. So I said, we see you stepping out. We said, if you would like, I will count to 3. If you step out, I'll take your picture. And I did. I counted to 1, 2, 3. Now, ghost hunter trick, take a picture on 2, take a picture on 3, and then take a picture on what would be a 4 after that. So that way you get 3 consecutive pictures. Okay. And so that's what I did. I took a picture on 2, picture on 3, and then an extra picture after that for a beat. The middle picture clearly showed a mist-like shape that looked like a neck and shoulders and arm leaned out from around the corner. And pictures on 2 and 4, totally blank. It was just, he just stepped out for that 3 and did exactly what we asked him to. So that was the coolest piece of evidence, because it's rare. It's not rare, but it's not, it doesn't happen all the time that you have an experience and then get a piece of evidence that corroborates that experience,
And there's also something I would say about actually being there and experiencing yourself as it happens. That's that, and you just know, it's just something that happened is real.
It's an interaction. You know, it's not, I was in the right place at the right time and I caught a residual haunting. This responded.
This was an intelligent reaction
exactly
to what you were asking. So
exactly.
Yeah. Wow, man. That is crazy. Do you still have any old photos and stuff?
I do have that picture still. I'll get that sent over to you, and you can, we
Awesome.
can share it on whatever social media, but I absolutely have that picture. I'm never, like I said, it's the best piece of evidence I ever caught. I'm never losing that picture.
Gosh, dude, that is so awesome.
Yeah.
Here we got another question. Let's see.
Cool.
David Martin. What's up, David? David Martin asked, Aaron, did you hear a voice saying get out? Did you hear anything like telling you to get out of there? Or
David, I've never heard any commands to get out or anything along those lines. The clearest voice that I ever, again, another opportunity where we caught something as we were experiencing it. That's like gold star kind of a moment. I know everybody talks about an apparition is the gold star, but when you can have an experience and then get evidence that backs that up, to me, that's the, that's the peak, but we were doing an investigation at a private house, and also the location of the best EVP I'd ever caught. But we were there on a second follow-up investigation, and we started hearing what sounded like a little girl. We were most of us in the living room, and then down the hall where the bedrooms were, we started hearing what sounded like a little girl saying mommy. And she had, the woman who owned the house had suspicion that there might be kids there. She had a lot of little things like TVs turning on and off on their own, little tricky kind of things that kids would do, so she suspected that she had children there. We caught on recording that same voice saying mommy. So as we were sitting there hearing it, and then we went back and reviewed the recordings, we actually checked that one live. During the investigation, if you think, if you hear something, you immediately stop recording and you want to be like, I want to see if we caught that. And we confirmed right there that we did catch it. And then we put it through filters and cleaned it up. And I mean, it was clear as a bell. We could even see her shadow down the hall too. That's actually what got us into communicating, was we saw her shadow, and we always approached it as just talking like you would to a person. So we just started with, we see you down there, sweetheart. Why don't do you want to come out and talk to us? A lot of us were parents, so we would all tell, especially with kids' spirits, it's all about making them comfortable. It's been my experience. All of this, by the way, that I'm saying just comes from my experience. I don't even really like to speak on opinions. I mean, I will if somebody asks, but everything that I put out is just from my experience. This has been my experience, and my experience with child type spirits has been that it's like real kids. I mean, they're just people. That's what I tell. That's ultimately what I tell every client that we ever did an investigation with, whether they were happy about the results or unhappy with the results. They're just people, they're just
Now,
people.
Aaron, do you think though? Okay, so this is I don't. There's times I've thought about this, and I think, are we interacting with another timeline? Are we interacting with another dimension? Are we interacting with people who have died and they're stuck in like a limbo type atmosphere? What's your opinion based off your experience?
Based off of my experience and just my own research, I think it's all of them. I think that some of the experiences that you have are with souls of people, or soul. I don't know if you want to call it a soul, but a spirit, a life energy, because there are different types of hauntings. You have intelligent hauntings, you have residual hauntings. I do think that there
could be a timeline base. A residual could just be a pickup of another time interaction.
And that's a different timeline bleeding through. It could absolutely be that. I think unless you can verify that it is a real person that you are communicating with, which I have done before, gotten it down to where we've gotten a name, those kinds of things. But until you can do that, anything's on the table, really, because I do think, that there are other dimensions out there. I think that whether we ever see them or not, is another story.
But I talk about this on the show all the time that, both my parents have passed away, and, I just recently lost my sister. Mm-hmm. And
my condolences for that.
Oh,
too. I know I said something to you before, but still.
Yeah, but the cool thing about this is what I tell people. Don't get me wrong, I physically miss them, but they communicate with me so regularly, especially my folks, that it's almost like, it's so. And if you don't have your doors open, you're not gonna, you're not gonna understand this. It's gonna sound weird to you, but they literally let me know that they are around me so much, and it's things that only I can know. It's just weird. It's hilarious to me. Everything's funny to me, so I'm like, hey, that's funny.
Yeah.
My sister, I told this story before, but this was, my sister's name was Pam, and this was like 2 days after she'd passed, and I had to host the show, and of course I didn't feel like doing it, but I did the show, and I put a clip up on TikTok of the show that I did, and she had just passed 2 days prior. Well, the very first the very first interaction whatsoever that video got came from an account with no profile, no followers, nothing, but it was from some account named Pam.
That's
weird,
but again, if you don't have your feelers open,
absolutely, that would go right over someone's head,
exactly.
Or if somebody, so I think, we get caught up in our day-to-day BS lives, our job deadlines, or just stuff that really doesn't matter. Yeah. And as there's another world. There's something bigger out there.
Yeah, so, there's a lot that's bigger out there.
And that goes back to what you were talking about earlier. There's so many ways to communicate.
Yeah.
So many ways. So, and when I say my folks, my dad's not calling me up, hey, but he is letting me know he's there.
It can be a smell. It can be
absolutely.
You see a certain animal, know, it can be, it can be anything, I still, now granted, this is one that I have set up to do this. It's a purposeful one, but my granddad was a big influence in my life. And I got, after he passed, I got a wind chime that he had made by hand, made it himself. It just sounds like iron pipes clinking against each other. It's not one of the prettier ones I've ever heard, but every time I hear that, I'm at his house, So, and I think that that same kind of evocative stuff can absolutely happen in the paranormal world.
Oh, yeah.
They can send you, your family, your friends, whoever can send you smells, can send you just little, the way the light dances off of something, you might see a face, I mean,
Absolutely.
it's the smallest things. You just have to be open, because honestly, I think it's not just when you're closed down, you're closed down. I also think that on the other side, whatever it is, I think they also quit trying if they feel like they're not getting through.
And I mean, I could see that. I could see, why would I want to keep trying to, if they're too busy, caught up, and they're not going to notice anyways. And to me, it doesn't. And to me, it's not sad at all. To me, it's comforting, and it's, but I mean, it's also, it's not like a crutch thing. Like sometimes people use, they use those things to make them feel better. I don't use it to make it's real to me, as this podcast, as everything else. I mean, it's experienced so much that I'm like, dude, this is, and it's, and the cool thing is, go ahead, Aaron.
Oh, I was just going to say that I know that, I lost my train of thought.
Well, I tell you what, let's do this. Metal Man's got a cool, he said, I don't remember who said it, but the amount we know is far outweighed by the amount we don't. So
that is absolutely true. The other thing I like to say along those same lines is most of the people in the world are dead.
That's true, dude.
Most of the people in the world are dead by a big majority. Big majority.
Yeah, most of them are dead.
Yep.
So, I mean, there's probably a lot going on somewhere else that we have, we have no clue about. But I mean, man, and I'll be honest, man, this show has really helped me. And I'm not a religious person at all. I'm not, but I am a big, I'll tell you this, I always say it, and I always give him a big shout out. I'm a big fan of Jesus. I'm a huge fan of Jesus.
More people should be like Jesus.
Absolutely, they should be, man. They should be.
This world would be an amazing place if more people were like Jesus.
And I think Jesus is probably one of the most misinterpreted, out there. But a big fan of Jesus. And I always used to make fun of people who would say this, but now I am this. But I'm spiritual.
Yeah,
I'm a spiritual person, which I'm not in any label. No, nothing. And the paranormal world is a very real place. It's very, and I also, I don't know if you had any experience with any bad experiences, but we know, people are jerks too. So I'm sure there's jerks in the afterworld too.
There are. Now, I've been lucky. I've never had any jerk experiences that didn't involve living people. But including some pranks on investigations too, which, Prospect Place, actually the guy who ran the club, Tracy, and his partner Scott, I have never been so scared in my entire life. The attic they were doing a lot of work renovating, and they've got these big plastic wraps around, just big sections of the room, and they had cut big holes in these wraps, and he just came out of the dark, his face coming right through one of those holes, and I was right there. I really thought I was going to need a change of clothes, like legit, because we're up there looking for ghosts, and a face comes out of the darkness and then just laughs. They all laughed so hard at me. It was so, but that was us. We were a family. We played jokes, especially if things were slow, because it's not like you see in the shows, there's not stuff happening every minute. That stuff is edited.
You have to have some fun on your own. Well, let me ask this before we do get out of here. Like I said, the show goes by so quick. And man, this isn't enough time to talk with Aaron, guys. First of all, we got to have Aaron back on here. We definitely got to have you back. So you're not really doing much investigating these days, but is this something maybe you might want to get back into and doing more of coming back?
I have plans, actually. A good friend of mine, and even my son, who's 11 now, he has expressed some interest in learning about it, so probably start some soft stuff with him, but but I've got plans with a good friend. We're actually starting a paranormal podcast as well. And we've talked about doing some ghost hunting and then sharing results on our podcast. So, we're looking at.
Do you have a name or anything yet for it? Anything you want to plug?
Yeah, it's called Night Music. We're also going to be, he and I are both musicians, so we're going to throw in some live music that's kind of tailored to whatever the topic is we're talking about. So, but Night Music, again, it's still a bit coming, but
okay.
But I will, but I'm happy to come back here too. This has been a blast. It really does go by fast, and it's just great talking to you, man.
And I know you've got so much more that you could tell stories over the years of doing this, man, because yeah, guys, when I say Aaron is one of the OGs, I mean, Aaron was doing this before it was cool, before everybody and their sister was hunting ghosts as a hobby, I mean, these guys were doing it. This was back in the day. Like I said, I had a pleasure of meeting them at a Dead Man's Farm show, and they were my first paranormal investigators I ever met. And like I said, it's been a long time, dude.
Long time
ago. Well, I tell you what, Aaron, man, this has been great, dude. You such a great conversation. I knew it would. And we'll definitely get you back on here, especially when the podcast gets going. Hop on here and give it a plug.
Yeah.
About it, and we'd love to learn more about that. But yeah, I got to get you back on to hear more stories.
Always down.
Awesome. All right, man. And if you can get me that picture, I'd love to show it. I'd love to share it on the show.
You'll get it in the next 48 hours, brother.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Guys, this is Aaron Cox. We'll definitely get him back on. And thank you for coming on the Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, man. You were awesome.
Thanks for listening to me.
All right, guys. I told you that would be a cool episode. I told you. Aaron's very knowledgeable in the paranormal world. I cannot stress how long he has been at it. I mean, they've been doing it a long time. We got to get him back on here so he can tell some more stories. And I promise I'll shut up. I won't talk so much this time. I just hadn't talked to Aaron in forever, and I really enjoy his conversation. If you guys have not done so, head over to theexperiencersupport.org and check out some of the articles there Ryan Stacy has released. Ryan Stacy is the lead investigator for TESA, and you can, get up to date on some cool things going on in the UFO, UAP world. Did I say that right? I jacked that up. UAP. That's Tennessee version, I guess. And also head over to Patreon and show us some love and Heed the World. You can make a small little donation. Those things go a long ways for the podcast. Guys, we are broadcasting live from the E-United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 105.3 FM on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Guys, if you have not done so, smash that like button, hit subscribe. We will be airing live every Tuesday on YouTube, and we're on every streaming platform you can think of, Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to podcasts. You can check us out there. Tell your friends, tell your mama, tell your dogs, tell your ghosts, tell your aliens. Tell them to give us a like, show us some love. And if you guys have not done so, show your boy some love. Give me a follow on Instagram at Super Magic Boy on Instagram and Danny Whitson Magic and Comedy on Facebook. If you'd like to come out to see one of my shows, that's where I post where I'm going to be, folks. Guys, I will see you next week at Tuesday, 7 p.m., same time. Thank you so much, Sean, David, Meadowman. You guys are great. See you guys next week. I'm out. All right, that does it for this episode of Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. A big shout out for tonight's awesome guest, and a bigger shout out for everyone who tuned in. And if you haven't done so yet, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube or wherever it is you listen to your podcasts. And like always, be sure to stay curious, heed the world, and keep the paranormal normal. I'm your host, Danny Whitson, and this has been Beyond the Tinfoil Hat.